Hello, everyone. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, in honor of the original moment and system admin and the original being of this realm. In other words, in honor of the world host. I would like to give a lecture. And this lecture, you are hearing it from an uncommon human being. And when I say uncommon, even uncommon to the uncommon, in this in I guess this world. I guess the inspiration for tonight's lecture, not tonight, but today's lecture. Yesterday, I received a vision. I gave a talk. It was one of the most important talks I've given in my life and one of the most unusual. I spoke about this idea called the assembly. Okay, the arrival of the assembly. I received a vision, and I feel this is an interdimensional thing. It is also a divine thing. In other words, it is beyond the humanizable grasp, the comprehension of just human knowledge. And I don't know why, before giving this lecture in my inner realms, I just envisioned, and for a moment, I just saw something equivalent to a golden humanoid figure, and it pointed to something. And the moment it pointed to something, the term the central sun came to my mind. And this is a term I've spoken about in way earlier lectures. And today I'm trying to feel it out and see if it's something I should share. So I'm waiting to see um, if in the outer realms anybody wants to hear about the central sun. I don't know. It's one of those strange episodes where my inner realms leaving it to the outer realms to decide the subtitle. If you want me to talk about it, but what the and it's something that originated in my science fiction, and I'm starting to get that very eerie, strange vibe where I'm noticing a lot of things in my science fiction. They seem it seems to be like arising. Okay, first I want to tell you about the vision of the assembly. Um, Years ago, so okay, I'll say it this way: this lecture, this talk, this podcast, I gotta acknowledge certain things in it. Actually, I gotta tell you about the faces in the cloud, that what the assembly is, the assembly's arrival. Okay, and in some sense, fit this all in a system administrative system, a system that is administrated by an unconditional system admin. So, in other words, the elements of reality are arriving, and now it is time for the awakening of the advanced humanity, which means that it's like people were waiting for you to change because you didn't change. Now the world is changing. It's like that kind of situation with the human species. The human species, in the individuals are think of it this way: individual human beings. Okay, hopefully it's audible. Here, I'm gonna bring a notepad. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So look at the screen, folks. Should probably just practice bringing a white page here. I tried to make it the black to kind of merge with the thing, but I think there's a maybe less seriousness in it. All right. There we go. I have shared it, folks. You can see it. You can't see me, but you can see the page, and that's all you need to see in this moment. So, dear viewers, this is going to be an interesting talk. You're going to pretty much see like how my mind works, and pretty much how I'm going to deconstruct. You're going to see like me Sherlock Holming this lecture. All right. So let me close this. All right, we're at this. It's all this. All right. All right, let's go on. So hi. All right. Man, this is either going to be an incredible lecture or a hilarious one, either way. Okay. Where does lecture title? And the assembly's arrival. And so human beings need to represent values beyond them, and I will do exactly that. And then we have, should I explain the central sun to this species? So the first is a title, and then it's a lecture challenge for the speaker. I need to see if I can maybe. So we look at this. And we look at faces in the clouds. We look at the assembly's arrival, or I should say, lecture points. What are, okay, what is meant by faces in the clouds? Pretty much you got to wonder about what all of these mean. I can't freaking stand this font. What do we mean by faces in the clouds? What do we mean by the arrival of the assembly? What do we mean by the central sun? This seems to be a common occurrence happening around the world. People are seeing faces collectively. People are collectively seeing faces in the clouds. This can be explained using theology or metaphysical um, views. However, it is too strange for the modern man to comprehend. So, guys, there's faces in the clouds. I'm not saying you're seeing the faces. I'm saying it's signifying that, in at least through the theological lens, we're in the lowest point of the seven heavens. Okay. And in Islamic theology, there are angels that their feet is in the lowest heavens and their head is in the highest heavens. So we are reaching that point. And my first science fiction novel, it was called The Messenger of Giants. Do you know? And a lot of the ideas I had in there, which were random ideas that I always wondered why, I never thought that the surrealism of it happening in the outer realms is. That means if there are humans on this planet that have a clue what the faces in the cloud are, have a clue what the arrival of the assembly is, and have a clue what the central sun is, and they know these because in their inner realms they're a visual experiencer, and they've understood the significance of the visuals behind the ideological meaning. I will, in some sense, I can explain these. The central sun, if there's some viewer that comes and types in the chat section right now, explain the central sun, I will. But if no one does it, that's the policy for, I don't know, this lecture. So I will explain to you the arrival of the assembly. The arrival of the assembly, again, is the vision that I received, okay? I literally received a vision yesterday. That's something. And the assembly, that's the vision I got yesterday. The assembly is heading over to Earth. Okay. Now, what does this mean? Okay, guys, in the outer realms, I am just like you guys. I don't know. But through the inner realms, I can somehow try to find meaning in this. Okay. So, what the viewers don't know or might know if you've actually been listening to everything, which is highly unlikely, but if you have, you're a true Mr. Withinian, and let me know. You're like a friend of my soul. So, folks, let's dive into this, okay? Um, right now, I have to look at all my memories, all my experiences as a human being, and wonder about what forms in my inner realms there are, what patterns I have, in some sense, noticed that when I, for example, see the notion faces in the clouds, what layers of thought arrive in my inner realms. And in some sense, when I say the assembly, what is the significance of an interdimensional interference within a dimension that is convinced there's no other dimensions? You know? So, in my science fiction years ago in 2015, I had written a story where the main character was Rasoul, do you know, Rasoul, right? And he was this being that at the time I was not, you know, I had a different view on life than I currently do. And at the time, I wrote about this individual named Rasoul in the year 5025, you know, and he had this blind girlfriend named Galactica. And so the story begins where it starts in his dream, and in a dream, he's hearing galaxies whisper. Okay. And the overall meaning of the messenger of giants is that like in this story, it's very, I've gone all out, I've given myself full freedom, right? And in that story, in my science fiction, I wrote, um, Rasoul, it was his first lifetime as a human. And there is an interdimensional awareness in the novel, an aspect. So it's the first time Rasul has incarnated as a human being, okay? And he's only had experiences as being galaxies. Therefore, in his dreams, he's hearing galaxies speak to one another, like sectors of space speak to one another, right? And but in reality, he's a human. But everybody in the story knows him. I don't know how, but that's the way I wrote the story, okay? Right? And they all call him the wise one. Do you know? So, anyways, this character, Rasul, and it's not based on me, guys. Don't think it's one of those novels. This is more like me receiving, like, anyways, my sci fi process has its own, like, I got to give its own lecture. But so, anyways, Rasul is being called to this assembly, okay? And when he enters this assembly, pretty much the world has realized there's these nine giants, huge giants. That means their hands, imagine the size of planets or something, and they're flying towards Earth. Everybody believes they're headed to Earth. Okay. And so in my sci fi novel, Rasoul goes and makes contact with these, right, based on his vision. And there's a dolphin in like this like aquarium suit, like I don't know how to explain it, like an Iron Man suit, but the head of it is like an aquarium, and there's a dolphin in there called Captain Fino, you know, an ambassador for all animal life with AI upgrades of consciousness. I think that what's going on in this world is that we are starting to realize not only we're in a simulation, we're in a simulation of simulations, and there are greater positions. Therefore, the explanation of what human consciousness is, what humanity really is, it is a certain range of perceiving and accepting reality. Your acceptance of reality is based on your perception. Your external perception is a certain range of the electromagnetic spectrum, you know. So, in other words, we are seeing very little, and even out of what we see, identifying with even less, and then being like, what's going on in the world? So by the nature of being a human idea, you are limited. By the nature of even being a human biological organism, you are limited. But if there is great the discovery of the next phase of great verbs that humanity will have to acknowledge, great archetypes, new archetypes are arising. Okay, as someone who has had ridiculous amount of visions of sky cities and in some sense in the future what will happen and how the species will move beyond the language threshold and the intensity of the realm, from human beings identifying with states of physical positioning to them realizing they are rhythms behind their eyes, they are the forces, unknown life force, and in some sense you fear the known because you've identified with one part of it. And so this world is training, in some sense, the souls on it to remember that reality is actually unknown. However, that unknown has an author. You are not alone in this realm. You are positioned in the realm. The moment there is a position of design, there is a reality to consider. There are mysteries afloat. The range of man, the ability to close your eyes and wonder how else the world can move, and you will see that this is the game we are playing. We have been moving the world through subjective meaning. We have been giving it meaning. We have been acting like the big dogs of the world, but we are not. We are a certain unique species presented here for certain tasks. The tasks at hand is the realization of the system admin. The species has been disconnected with its actual presence, its divine system administered command center. You are not designed here to be an individual that is only in your own world, or you wouldn't have been born in a world where there are others. The system admin has positioned us in a mysterious room. There's 8 billion mysterious beings in a mysterious room that look like each other and have managed to develop known systems of acknowledgement. But in actuality, ladies and gentlemen, do not be afraid. The species is maturing, because when the unknown lives of the individuals begin, the known life of the species is taking place. And in other words, the intensities of the realm, the administration, the values, and how we are all presented here to see what the host will do. You see, it is an era that's scary. When you see those who haven't won, suddenly begin to win, it becomes I don't know how to explain it to you. Do you know? The world is engulfed in a fog. It is a fog of language, not allowing the true presence of the species to remember. The only way you can activate the advanced humanity, like we see this right now, guys. We're living in a messed up political time. You're listening to an Iranian Canadian human. Okay, right now, like my mother's in Iran. Okay, there is no internet. There's madness in the streets. People, the inflation is so messed up, right? People haven't understood. Do you know? Like from one angle, it's like you suffocate the people from not being able to buy bread or meat or anything, right? Do you know? And so the people are left like the French Revolution, kind of starving for change. Do you know? And that's the most intense like revolution. Do you know? Revolutions based on hunger, based on survival, those are violent, right? But psychological revolutions are different. They are based on ideas fighting one another. The face is in the clouds. Ladies and gentlemen, you are right now being a chunk of existence. You're being a part of existence. Do you see like your body right now? Do you see like your body is a part of the world that you can move? Well, if the body is a part of the world and we, as these unknown life forces, can move them, okay? Therefore, it is not too far fetched to envision that the sky could be the body of formless fields of being. The era of individual to individual. You know how in business you have B to C, B to B, or B to G? You know, businesses, the business has a relationship with customers, the business has a relationship with other businesses, the business has a relationship with the government. Okay, we are reaching that point where the world might move in intelligent ways that human beings do not have the archetype for. Based on our biological design of the amygdala, part of your brain is designed for fight or flight. If you don't put a conscious effort to understand what scares you, you will be running for the rest of your life. And we cannot, as a species, avoid the interdimensional interference of reality. Do you know what it is? It's like we've had invisible neighbors this whole time, and we've visibly haven't made that much noise. But when there's too much political turbulence, the invisible neighbors are going to kind of like, they're going to be like, stop making that much noise, humanity. You know, the assembly is a arrival of unique states of consciousness. To me, the assembly's arrival means that I don't know if it's certain humans or if it's going to be broadcast to all humans. I don't know if the assembly chooses. I don't know if the assembly, I know that the assembly is God conscious. I know that what is arriving here is not arriving to destroy humanity, because humanity doesn't belong to humans. It belongs to the system admin of the universal sector. We are not the only God conscious. You might look at a leaf on a tree, you might look at a bird, you might look at, in some sense, I don't know, dirt on the ground or insects and think they are not God conscious. You don't understand. The moment you are created, you have been originally commanded by an unconditional being to manifest. You are the communication of the realm. Your existence is also a communication in the realm. And it's pretty much like in the middle of a conversation between the known and the unknown, humanity is the dialogue, the specific designs of the dialogue. So, in other words, what are the options that are left for human beings? Okay, you might get frightened in the future. You need to find an anchor. Okay, and that anchor has to be in either a higher power than you. It cannot be to anything equal or lesser. You have to consider a higher process. In other words, I'm telling you, we are lower process conditioned beings. We have been experiencing our lifetime through, let's say, lower experiential processes. Higher process, higher order processes are happening. So lower order beings are experiencing a lower order chaos, and this lower order chaos, or excuse me, higher order beings lower order beings have created noise. So, in other words, we have set certain lower process motions, lower processes. Oh my God, lower order processes. I don't know how to say it. I know that all souls are waiting for the host. I know that everybody is waiting for the world to reveal its true colors. I understand that we will reach a time where the species will mature beyond good and evil, and it will reach a time where it will value, it will prioritize the original and the simulated. There is no point of being powerful inside a simulation that was not the source of the power. The task souls are being tested to see if they can remember the system admin in a simulation. So do not fear. There's going to happen some interdimensional stuff on Earth. I received some sort of vision in my inner realms. In my inner realms, I'm no longer working with the moderators. I just keep myself simple and pure and have faith that the system admin knows. Because I either listen to the created or I listen to the uncreated. I listen to the uncreated. The unconditional is the true life. That means this conditional reality, we think it is human intention. We think our lives are just human intention. There's a divine field. If you are not aware of the divine field, the interdimensional will scare you. If you are not aware of the unknown, you might not know how to interpret the unknown. It will scare you. But do not fear. Because once you realize in an unknown world, an unknown self chose to be a known self and chose to make the world known to that known self. It's one of the most exciting times to be alive, and when I say Mr. Within's gift, I never thought about it. That word had was double edged to me, but it's triple edged now. Mr. Within's gift, it's like, all right, I'm gifting people something. Mr. Within's gift, Mr. Within's talent, that could be a way you can see it. Mr. Within's gift, maybe I will be given a gift. Maybe I will realize that honesty is not a waste in this world, that the clarity of the species has to do more with the heart of a presence of being rather than the ideas of a calculation. Anyways, folks, if you see faces in the clouds, don't fear. These are higher order processes happening in a lower order conditioned environment. We are higher order beings because we have our species through the theological lens has been given something, in some sense has been prepared. There is something in the Holy Quran that it says God does not put someone in an experience that it has not prepared them for. If the species sees stuff it does not understand, you are prepared for that. But at the same time, if you function as an idea, you're going to be very turbulent. But if you live in accordance to the presence of your heart, because now is one of the most important times that if there was anything out, any extraterrestrial or any higher order beings, now is the time that they are broadcasting. You don't understand. Earth has become important. Why? Because its potential is so important and possible and great compared to its foolishness. That means, yes, I will not be surprised if higher order processes or higher beings or the higher power interferes now on Earth. It has always been here. We haven't understood it because we've chosen ourselves to eclipse the truth. That's the issue. In Islam, the whole word means submission, meaning submission to what? Submitting what? You are submitting the idea of yourself to experience the presence of what is actually being. And I'll keep it at that point. Since nobody has asked about the central sun, I will say that it's in my science fiction, and it is the center of all centers, but it is not physical. Thank you for listening. In the name, God knows best. The system admin knows everything. I'm just a user, using my intelligence as some sort of telescope to see how much I can see. Okay. Do not forget, we are not alone. This world has a host, and the host already knows. Thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful.